America. We were living in the east by the Nile River, living in luxury, enjoying freedom, justice, and equality. We wore silken robes and slippers of gold. We were the wealthiest and the wisest people untold. Now we are the poorest of the poor. Nobody wants us at their door. So my friend, it's easy to tell, white man heaven is a black man hell.
Either call y'all, it's easy to tell. White man heaven is a black man hell.
So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that Master Farad Muhammad said 6 words to us, and these were the 6 most powerful words that he spoke. He said, accept your own and be yourself. Accept your own. The Caucasians who brought our fathers into slavery desired to take us away from our own people, our own culture, our own religion, our own God, our own language. So we have grown up in America away from our own mind, away from our own selves, and so we have been actually indoctrinated with an alien mentality.
10,000 fearless men. Because we're going to have to challenge the things that are destroying our community. Sure. So this ain't no punk time. This ain't no temple time, mosque time, or church time. All the singing and shouting and preaching is over. Get in them streets now. Block by block. We're going to have to clean it up. The airwaves is not enough. The television screen is not enough. You got to put boots on the ground who are trained and are willing to make the sacrifice of life itself to see our community made a decent place to live.
Attention. Drill.
Soldiering is a part of the Nation of Islam, and it readies all of us to obey the commands of God. Now some will ask, well, why military drill? Because this is what produces the camaraderie.
Facebook and Instagram thought that they could ban the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
But in reality, they can't, because he already lives in us and millions of others.
قل أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
In the name of Allah, Master Farad Muhammad, the one true and living God, to whom praise is due forever. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is his messenger. Peace, family, and welcome back to another great episode of WHID-FM. WHID-FM is your personal platform for those of us striving to follow the life-giving and life-saving teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, as given to us by his premier pupil, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, gathered right here in this virtual meeting place to answer that most critical question of what has Islam done for me. It's Sunday, July 7th, and at this time we're going to turn it over to our dynamic special technical assistant, Brother Wesley Muhammad, and he'll take us into our next portion of our program. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Wesley.
Wa alaikum salam, Brother West. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I'd like to greet our beautiful audience of What Has Islam Done for Me with the greeting words of peace of Assalamu alaikum. This evening, we have another exciting episode with our two dear sisters, Sister Qadira Muhammad and Sister Jadayah Muhammad. And I'd like to read their bios, starting with Sister Qadira. Sister Qadira Muhammad is 27 years of age and a third-generation Muslim out of Muhammad Mosque number 7. She currently attends Oklahoma City Study Group in Oklahoma City. She spent her high school years in the student ministry class at her former mosque, Muhammad Mosque number 24 in Richmond, Virginia. She became a certified auditor and auditor supervisor a few days after her 14th birthday, the youngest graduate at the time, and spearheaded 2 youth-led and youth-centered 2-day seminars, the first of its kind. She would later go to college and graduate with a degree in political science and a double major in religious studies and peace building and conflict resolution. She was dedicated to causes that centered spiritual upliftment and unity among her peers. Her involvement in campus would include being an active member of her school's interfaith group, Quest, and completely reshaping the structure of the Student Government Association, or SGA, as SGA president to address growing concerns from the student body during her university's transition from all-female to co-ed at a tumultuous period for her peers. She graduated at the top of her class with the highest academic and student honors her alma mater had to offer, including Phi Beta Kappa, Omicron Delta Kappa, and the Algernon Sidney Sullivan Award, the highest student award on her campus, which recognizes a college senior for her virtue and service to her campus and community. She is currently a teacher for Stepping Stones Online Education, a Nation of Islam Center school, a business owner offering global project coordination and consultative services, and a youth representative for the International Youth Leadership Institute at the United Nations, where she serves as coordinator on the youth subcommittee for the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. She is conversationally fluent in German, B2/C1, and studies Japanese, JLPT-N4, and Quranic Arabic. Sister Qadira has traveled to over 16 countries to date, most travels being for academic or research purposes. Although no longer in the student ministry class in an official capacity since moving to Oklahoma City Study Group, she assists when needed and uses what she learned in the student ministry class in other capacities, such as becoming a regular on the Ummah Reflects podcast, formerly known as the Ramadan Prayer Line. Her passion for travel, peace building, and research has led her to dedicate her life to connecting and demonstrating the universal truth of Islam expressed across peoples, cultures, faiths, and borders. That is our dear sister, Sister Qadira Muhammad. Next, we have Sister Jadayah S. Muhammad. She is a proud MGT vanguard of Muhammad Mosque number 77C, based in Brooklyn, New York. She serves as the executive director and main United Nations representative of the International Youth Leadership Institute, IYLI, a proud IYLI alumni in Tanzania 2011. She engages international and local organizations in developing strategies around youth and social impact, including her current work on behalf of youth in the United Nations Permanent Forum for People of African Descent, or UNPFPAD. As well as prior work with the UN Department of Global Communications and the New York City Young Women's Advisory Council, which addresses policy issues that directly affect young women of color in New York City. Jadayah started her undergraduate education at age 16 as the CAS Dean Scholar at New York University, where she majored in anthropology and double majored in social and entrepreneurship and East Asian Studies Mandarin. A third generation Brooklynite, she has been recognized as one of 40 under 40 rising stars in the NYC nonprofit sector by New York Nonprofit Media. She loves world travel, meaningful conversations, and dissecting rap lyrics. That's our dear sister, Sister Jadayah Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, dear sisters.
Wa alaikum salam.
Praise be to Allah. Again, thank you both for accepting the invitation to come on WHID-FM. We just have some questions we're going to ask you all. I'm going to ask just a few, then I'm going to pass over to Brother West. But to start us off, give me one moment to update my screen here. All right. The first question I would like to ask, being that you both are involved as being representatives of the International Youth Leadership Institute, what are some of the highlights, what is involved in being a representative in the International Youth Leadership Institute? And what are some of the highlights that you have to share with us on your experience and involvement? And we can start with Sister Qadira.
Yes, sir. So being in the International Youth Leadership Institute is actually, there's so many pieces in it because where I do my work is with as a youth representative, but the International Youth Leadership Institute as a whole is an organization that has been around since 1989, and their work really focuses and centers on Black youth and Black youth leadership and education, and how can we prepare our youth to be the leaders of today, because we are not the future, we exist now, we can make change in our communities now. And so IYLI has a lot of different work that you can get involved with it, such as coordinating with workshops, helping to have the youth in the International Youth Leadership Institute to travel abroad. They have had programs in different countries in Africa, in Central and South America as well. And so you can also work in those capacities as someone who is going on those travels or helping to do preparations for those travels. And I'll let Sister Jadayah go into more details on that side of IYLI. As a youth representative for the United Nations, that capacity involves us basically being a liaison, so to speak, between IYLI and the United Nations. And so that involves us going to different forums or conferences, such as the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. That also means, General Assembly's around the corner. So for those who are based in New York, I am not in New York City at the moment. For those based in New York, I'm going to General Assembly, connecting with permanent missions, which are the countries that are represented in the United Nations, and liaisoning between ambassadors and different activists and community organizations. And basically, really, our purpose is to really start those connections, because there are some incredible individuals and even organizations that are associated with the United Nations that align very closely with IYLI's mission, of course, and also even with what we do in the nation. And so to be able, when we talk about our unity being more powerful than an atomic bomb, this is really like an international space to be able to meet people who are like-minded and be able to then collaborate. I have a few moments that stand out in my mind. Most notably, we went to Geneva in April by the permission of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to travel to the third permanent forum on people of African descent. And this was we've been to all three permanent forums, and we we had actually worn our garments, so our headpiece, and that was a standout because people kept stopping us. People recognized the nation. People were so happy that we were there. We couldn't physically, we were at the end of one of the sessions, the first session where, because there's more than one session during a day. So at the end of the first session, at the end of this, I believe it was, no, I'm sorry, the second session, people kept stopping us and we could not physically leave because people wanted to keep talking with us, taking pictures, thanking the nation for the work that we do. And that really was a powerful moment because just the impact that the nation has had globally. And we have, Sister Jadayah and I have many, many stories on that, where people have, in our travels, people have just brought up the Nation of Islam. Sometimes just, we didn't ask, they just brought it up to us, and really putting into perspective the impact that we have had. I will stop there to let Sister Jadayah add on to that.
All praises due to Allah. Sister Jadayah?
Can you restate the question, please?
Yes. So what is involved in being a representative of the International Youth Leadership Institute, and what are some highlights that you can share with us from your experience and involvement?
Right. So as Sister Qadira said, the International Youth Leadership Institute, we mainly work in, well, it's an organization that I encountered thanks to my fellow junior vanguard at the time, like back when I was in high school. Like a lot of believers, children through this organization had the opportunity of traveling to countries in Africa and Latin America and the Caribbean. And in short, the United Nations works with nonprofits and what they call like non-governmental organizations or NGOs all over the world in order to exchange information and just to be able to make sure that countries are, or at least purportedly, like the way to make sure countries can work toward the shared goals that every nation is supposed to have. So things like the Sustainable Development Goals, so no poverty, no hunger, clean water for everybody, quality education for everybody, proper treatment of women, just general gender equality and things like that. So our work involves mainly advocating for the issues of youth, in particular Black youth around the world. And so that means, as Sister Qadira has already mentioned, like doing what we can to create space for partnership among organizations that are also aligned with those same goals. And then also just doing what we can to learn and bring that back to our communities. And so with that, memories that stand out, Sister Qadira has already mentioned some of them, but I think one of the things I'll say is we had the blessing of getting to work with multiple teams at the UN, and by virtue of where we are at, our teams are very international. So one team that I'm on, our team members come from all over the world, all over, like, I think every habited continent is represented. So like my teammate would be, one teammate's from India, another one's from Taiwan, another one's from Turkey, another one's from the Bronx, another one's from Mexico, and so on. And so like hearing someone say on that team, like, oh, our team is like a family. Or hearing another team member say, oh, yeah, it's just like Jadayah said, like, in any case not covered by instructions, follow, the chain of communication or just the different ways that the culture that we strive to cultivate and nurture wherever we go, which is Islam. And people think of, Islam as just a religion, but as we know, it's a way of life. And it's a way of life where we strive to, treat others as we would want to be treated. And that means like looking out for each other, and then hearing other people also echo those same sentiments, and not maybe they're not thinking of it in terms of, oh, this is an Islamic concept, but just knowing that we got to play a part in spreading that culture, and that side of the culture of Islam has always been a great blessing. and basically the friends that we get to make. So now a large part of it also is that a lot of people who we work with who plan events alongside us, draft declarations, engage in meetings, advocate for specific policy that helps with young people. A lot of people who work alongside us are now also our friends too. And so now we have friends who are also from all over the world. And so that's been a really great blessing. So I'll stop there.
Oh, praise is due to Allah. Thank you for those responses. My next question, in reference to that as well, how do you all balance your community responsibilities, business, and then ensuring that you have time for yourself to be able to recharge mentally, physically, and spiritually? We can start with Sister Jadayah first.
I'm laughing because that's a really great question. That is an excellent question. Trying to figure it out. No, but yeah, honestly, and part of my voice is a bit hoarse, but I'm not sure. We're trying to find balance with that because one of the things that comes with the work that we do is, and it's like in life, you get to choose. Some problems you get to choose, and some problems you don't get to choose, right? Like, I love the problem of, oh no, like our team is so international, we're on different time zones, so we're gonna have to have this meeting earlier or later than you normally would. Like, I love that problem because for me, like, this international work, as far as I understand it, is part of what I was made for. So I'm like, yo, put me in. But the flip side of that is that you end up kind of tired early in the day if you were up meeting with a team member, who is on the exact opposite side of the world, for example. So what I have experienced is that as I'm working on self-care, I'm learning to lean on like my team and my family to assist with that. So like community care. So we look out for each other. So sometimes that might look like, I noticed that you were up late in your time zone. Don't worry about taking this next meeting. I'll take the meeting and share the notes with you. So like being able to tap out and know and trust that your teammates got your back, the power of friendship and all that. That's something that I found to be very helpful. Otherwise, I'm still figuring it out. So gotta be honest.
Yes, ma'am. We appreciate the transparency. Sister Qadira?
Yes, sir. To add on to what Sister Jadayah just said, big on what she said about the team and having some people to rely on and knowing that we have each other covering down in our language. And in addition to that, for me, it has been really a process to do that because honestly, before college and throughout college, it was I burnt myself out after I graduated. And it was like a total like burnout. And praise be the blessing in it was that was shortly before the pandemic. I graduated in 2019. And so that with the pandemic and everything shutting down, it allowed me to reflect on my time and taking care of myself. And so in that process, I'm still building on it and working on it, but I am happy to say that I am in like a much better place in terms of taking care of myself than I was a few years ago. One big thing that I have found is time chunking, which is like first figuring out like what time I put aside to certain things. So I used to like probably do multiple. If you heard that thunder, we're in a thunderstorm, so apologize for that. But I used to do like multiple different tasks or projects or groups work because I'm in different capacities in one day, and I found that can be very overwhelming. What I do by time chunking is I first have to figure out what days, based on the flow of my schedule and the flow of my week, and knowing that my weekends are going to be taken because we do work in the nation and we have like MGT class on Saturdays and and things on Sunday for the lecture and whatever else that we might be having over the weekend. And so knowing that normally my weekends are taken, what other days of the week can I put in at least some time for myself? So I know that Tuesdays is going to be like one of my fullest days, like literally from 7:30 a.m. to sometimes 10, 11 o'clock p.m. And so by time chunking, I know those are a lot of my meeting days and a lot of work days. So Wednesday, I'll make sure that I'm putting in that I'm going to be waking up later. Or that might even take the day off on Wednesday to then on Thursday be meeting days, and then maybe Fridays be like focused on my spiritual self, more of my spiritual. We have Friday night study group in Juma. And so time chunking has been very helpful. And honestly, the most important thing is I had to be honest with myself, and realize that when I talk about putting time aside, I have to go with the flow of what my body is telling me. If I'm just gonna say, oh well, I can do something on Wednesday morning and like make my yes, there's gonna be extenuating circumstances that sometimes on Wednesday morning I have to do something, but I'm not going to like intend to do that every single Wednesday, knowing that my Tuesdays are already extremely long days and you normally end very late, because I'm going to and I need my sleep. I'm going to burn myself out and I'm going to be exhausted for the rest of the week and won't be able to show up like I need to. So it really requires me to be in tune with my body, and really intentional in that. And so also intentional with my time also means that I say yes to a lot of things, but I don't say yes to everything. One of my mentors, when I was in college, told me that the more you say no, the value of your yes increases. And that's something that I stuck with, realizing that I don't have to necessarily say yes to everything. And also I might be able to, maybe I don't have to take it on, but maybe I can be the one to present a solution to the problem to then maybe delegate. That's a big another one, delegating. As a coordinator, I do a lot of delegating. Realizing that I don't have to do everything by myself, because I think that's another thing that we think that we have to take on everything. But you can see that delegating tasks can also alleviate you of some of it as well. Which then again creates space and time. Other things is that I just make sure that I, get my sleep, get some kind of spiritual study in prayer, and working out, exercising, going outside, getting up vitamin D. Getting some kind of sun or going out, because I work remotely a lot, also helps. So I know this is a long answer. Actually, this is the kind of stuff that I love talking about. And reflecting on. So I could go on for a long time about it, but I think the most important thing is just listening to my body, knowing listening to my body to know when to stop, know my capacity, and then also just going outside makes a big difference.
Praise be to Allah. Yeah, definitely. These are great responses, and it's something that we all, I'm sure, are struggling for. As we have a study guide, struggle for balance. So it is something that is known that it is, a difficult task to be able to manage things, especially if your schedule can change at any time based off your responsibilities as well. So yeah, great responses, and thank you for your transparency on that as well. One of the things that stood out that you stated was that the value of your yes goes up the more you say no. And being okay with saying no to certain opportunities, something that I've been learning to learn as well. Just, certain things, opportunities that are presented sometimes can be a distraction from the end goal. Just because it's an opportunity doesn't mean it's the opportunity that you take right now. So these are great points, and I'm sure those that are listening and watching are taking value from it as well. One other question before I turn it to Brother West to ask a few questions as well. I wanted to ask, this is kind of focused, Sister Qadira, but you can add to this as well, Sister Jadayah, as well. But what encouragement and guidance would you give your fellow younger sister or young brother in the nation as well that has innovative or progressive ideas that can aid the community, aid the nation, to bringing them to life? And if you've had any opposition to it, how would you encourage them to navigate that so-called rejection or the opposition that they may receive when they do have bright ideas but want to be able to pursue it, but not sure when the timing should be right? If that makes sense, and let me know if that's too much of a question.
That makes a lot of sense. Yes, sir.
Thank you to Allah.
The words of encouragement that I would give is to stay excited with your idea and believe in your idea. and make and build a support system. Your support system, inshallah, starting with your parents, but any support system that can help to cultivate that idea, because one of the things that I have realized about myself is that I end up taking unconventional roads a lot of the times. And I end up doing things that might not be at the same time as my peers. So I'll give an example in terms of this advice. When I was a teenager, 16, I had never flown out of the country before. I had never been on an airplane before. And I got an opportunity to go to Japan through a student ambassador program. And that program was $7,642. And I remember the number to this day because I had to pitch it many, many, many times. And I initially wasn't going to do it. I had actually gotten an invitation before for another country, but so I was like, I got another invitation for another country. I was like, nah, I'm not going to do it. It's not a lot of money. I mean, it's a lot of money, and I would like to, but it was actually, I imagine both my parents had talked about this, but my mom had come up to me and just said, why don't we just try? And something in me energetically, now I can say what that something is now. That was Allah speaking and saying, do it. I felt because the moment she said that, I saw the vision. I was in Japan. And I was like, okay, we'll do it. And it was a lot of work. And it's very, very, we got support from our mosque, and we got support from from even our regional MGT office and our national MGT office. And I was going out around the community pitching everywhere to be anyone who can support, either donate something so I can do fundraisers or just donating money right away. It was a lot of work. And throughout all of that, it was the support system of my family that really helped through that. And it was really, really hard at times because we kept having to ask and keep pushing for the deadline. We got some of it, but we wouldn't get all of it because it was like a monthly amount you had to send. And there were times where I was just like, is this really going to happen? But I'm like, the thing I held on to was the vision. I was like, I see myself in Japan. I feel it. I'm there. But there's a gap. And how is this going to happen? I would just think about it a lot. And that during that time, and this is in order for encouragement to you, for you to keep going, I would encourage you to do the same. I started listening to finding lectures of the minister from the minister that pertain to things like this feeling. Cause I'm like, I need something to keep going because it's getting hard and I don't know if this is going to happen. And I would pray a lot and I would look for the lectures and I would study in my mind, like, okay, what was the thought process the minister was, he's explaining to go through to get to the other side of this, and that those lectures, especially about faith and about putting things into reality, I would search for those. And this was during the time of YouTube where you couldn't find too many, like you will find some lectures of the minister, but it wasn't like too many. So I was really going all over YouTube. But that is what kept me going, was the faith, really, and the study and the studying of how the minister said to approach this. What attitude do I need to take? And by the grace of Allah, like I was like $2,000 short. I got a call, and that call said that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan would pay for the last $2,000. And with that, we had my family and I had a phone conversation with him, and he also gave an additional $200 for souvenir money, and so $2,200 total. And I went to Japan, and that literally shaped the course of my life. Like that trip, I feel like that was like a divine seal that I didn't know was a divine seal at that time. That things from that trip even unfold to this day. So to those who have a dream and they believe in it, the most important thing is really, as times get tough, stay close to your village and stay close to your foundation. And if you don't have that village yet, begin finding those like-minded individuals. And even if you don't have it yet, be patient. Remember, we're taught to make Allah sufficient. If nothing else, He is our friend. In fact, He is our best friend. So if you stay in tune with Him through prayer, through study, then you just remember the only difference between you and your vision at that point is just time and patience. And so as you meet opposition, and you probably are going to meet opposition because, let's be honest, we're in a world where a lot of people are insecure. You might encounter jealousy and envy, and people, maybe they might be well-intended, but they just really don't believe in that vision. You have to stick to it, and you have to keep going, and you have to stay tunnel vision. Like, if you gotta write it out, whatever it is going to do to keep that energy moving to get to that vision.
All praise is due to Allah. Beautiful answer. And Sister Jadayah as well, what would you like to add to that as far as navigating rejection? When you have innovative and progressive ideas, how would you encourage a younger sister or a younger brother that have these ideas and aspirations to do great things, but may receive some opposition or may be told that this may not be the time? How would you encourage them, and maybe basically giving your experience of navigating through that as well?
First of all, I have to say, alhamdulillah, Sister Qadira, yo, you're on point. I feel so encouraged and heartened by your words. And thank you, brother, for asking the question. Like, that's such a beautiful question. And the first thing that came to my mind was two things. One, knowing that like that's part of having those innovative ideas and then receiving friction, is that, that's the price of being ahead of your time sometimes. Like, sometimes it might take you beating a drum that you've beaten for years and years, or for a long while, and for the rest of maybe society or the folks around you to catch up. That really is like part of the process. And so the other thing that came to my mind is like planes, and how planes take off against friction too. But every time Sister Qadira mentioned like her first time on a plane being like at the age of 16, but like one of the things that I always think about is just like, I love being on planes, and how the Wright brothers, who created like, the prototype of what they call like the modern day planes, like when they were in the process of building the planes to take off and fly, people really were harassing them like crazy. Like, they were working out of their sister's bike shop, and she had kind of like fundraised, and she was kind of financing their project, and their neighbors were calling them crazy. Somehow, like, news of their work had gotten all the way as far as France, and they were called charlatans. The New York Times said it was foolish, and that it would be another something crazy, like at least another 100 or more years before human beings could ever fly. And they took off on their first flight, I think 2 weeks after that. And so, but the thing is that like they were told like, nah, you cannot possibly put wood and metal and plastic and like put it all together and shape it into like the shape of a bird, and it's gonna fly like lighter than air. Like, they were told it's crazy. I think the first flight didn't even last 30 seconds. Point is, though, they did it, right? And I think about it all the time. Every time I'm on a plane, I'm like, yo, I'm so grateful that they pushed through for that idea so that I could have a window seat, and so that it's normal in society to complain about traffic to the airport. Like, I think it's so normal now, and we take it for granted now in the year of our Lord 2024, right? But it's like everything that you ever touched started off as an idea in someone's mind. And in their particular case, like as a person who loves to fly, I get to benefit. And Allah had me born at a time where flying is like a normal thing and not a hypothetical thing, So anyway, that gives me like encouragement every time, because imagine if they gave up. Like, everyone told them that they should. Imagine if they did. Like, what kind of world would we be living in today? It would be so much less cool. So I think about that too. Even as I remember that we have to operate in accordance with Allah's timing and not just our own. So as Sister Qadira said, patience matters a lot. And for me, patience is sometimes like the hard part. It's like, like I see the vision right now. Like, how do you get someone else to try and and others like to try and see the vision? It's like sometimes they're not gonna see it and you gotta just push forward anyway, right? So those are just some of the things that come up. But thank you again, Sister Qadira, for your encouragement. Also, shout out to cite our sources: Fear, Faith, and Truth. If you ever need encouragement, you ever feeling down, definitely one of the all-time favorite lectures of mine of our dear minister. To just remember what it takes to push through.
All praises due to Allah. I believe that is the number one quoted one on this program and platform as well of those in their favorite lectures. So praise be to Allah. It's one of mine as well. Thank you both so much for those answers and responses to that. I would like to now bring Brother West up to be able to ask some questions for you as well. Brother West?
Yes, sir. Thank you. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is His messenger. Assalamu alaikum, family.
Alaikum salam, sir.
Praise be to Allah. So my first question I wanted to ask you both was, as two MGTs who grew up under the nation and in the teachings are considered nation babies, what about your childhood made you decide to become a Muslim child instead of just the child of a Muslim? And we can start with you, Sister Jadayah.
Man, I was really kind of hoping to volley over Sister Qadira for that. Okay, what about? Oh, I know, immediately, right? So growing up in the mosque under the leadership of our dear Minister Farrakhan, under the leadership of our dear brother Abdul Hafiz, my godfather, just want to say for the record, and Brother Minister Henry out in 7T. I got to say that the thing for me was this, right? Like, we're born as scientists and as seekers of truth. And so I personally loved how I was always encouraged to study and encouraged to find answers for myself. And that, our minister would say, like, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. And so now I would ask questions like, okay, well, why do we believe that? Is that true? I don't know if y'all hear the sounds of New York outside my window. But anyway, yeah, like the fact that it was never, just believe that what we say is true because I said so. And I was always never taught to shy away from studying other ways of life and other systems of belief either. So growing up as a child, like, we read the Bible, we read the Quran. I studied Buddhism. I studied every facet of different cultures and religions that I could, just with the spirit of curiosity and the fact that I had the freedom to do so. And so that, like, the fact that, it was never, like, silence, don't ask questions, because as we know that even in our supreme wisdom is a book of questions, and some questions are even being posed to God himself. So then it's like, yeah, of course you can question God, you can question anybody about anything. So it was in people's willingness to encourage me to just, hey, if you don't believe me, study and find out for yourself, or like you can go and learn for yourself. And I was never taught to hide from knowledge, or no one was ever afraid to say, oh, I don't know, or let me find out for you, or things like that. And so in my search for truth, the cultural expression and the, like, everywhere I've gone in the world, I've only found just more evidence of the truth of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad through the Honorable Minister Farrakhan. Like, not the other way around. It wasn't like, oh, once I got out and started like traveling and whatnot, I found out, oh, what those Muslims in the Nation of Islam got going on over there is, it's not true. Like, it was quite the opposite. I could not possibly stress enough, like, just to, I would almost call it bizarre levels, but just like, sometimes when the lobby put in the message, like, boom, pow, in your face, and you cannot get around it in any way, shape, or form, in multiple languages, on multiple continents, and you keep getting the same message. It's like, yeah, I think yeah, we're taught that Islam is mathematics and mathematics is Islam, and which means that if it ain't the truth, if it don't add up, you can keep it, right? But I keep finding that the math is indeed mathing, and in that I was like, yeah, of course, like, and if you keep the ability to recognize patterns is a sign of intelligence, and so in that pattern, I was like, yeah, I have had the benefit of just having like the great blessing of being born into a space where truth is. And then as time goes on, we just come to find out that our teachings are just even more evidently true than they were before. Like if you were to read Message to the Black Man right now versus reading when it was published in I think 65, it feels even more true now than before, right? And it's like a timeless knowledge and wisdom that we're talking about here. And so those are some of the things, and also just like the kindness and just overwhelming love of the believing family from like around our planet, and just the absolute, the spirit of Islam, where it's like we look out for each other, treat each other like family, like that. That to me also, I've had that sense of belonging and protection and community too, that really I want for all people. Like all people should get to know what it's like to have like Muslim neighbors. I can go on for a while, but it's how do you not, like, you get the knowledge, the wisdom, and the love, and the warrior spirit. Like, what you don't, you get everything. So to me, it was a no-brainer.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And now you, Sister Qadira.
Yes, sir. So to add to what Sister Jadayah said, I would say about 2 or 3 things. The first one being actually what she mentioned as well, about being able to just question everything. I was, and am still am, but growing up, I was super curious, and my parents were very, very encouraging for me to ask every question I had. I would ask I was a very rhetorical thinker, and probably still am. So even with rhetorical scenarios, and getting those answers, and them saying that you should ask questions, and get to the answer that you seek. And so I think that, and since Sister Jadayah talked about that, I'll also talk about another piece as well, which really is the examples around me, starting with my parents. My parents really, when growing up, like they really made the teachings the forefront of their lives. They still do. And that stuck with me. Like the decisions that they had made for our family, they were saying, how can we get closer to what we are to do as believers, as a family in the nation? So, for example, I started homeschooling, which ironically was not because my parents originally made that decision to homeschool. It was because we moved and it was going to be temporary. But we stuck with it. And I'm very, very grateful that we stuck with that experience of homeschooling. We went to the mosque all the time. We were always there. And I bet I recognize some believers on this making comments. They could attest to it. And my parents were like, this, we're going out on Saturdays. We're going out on, well, for my mom and my sister and myself, we're going out on Saturdays. We're going out on Sundays. We're going to believers meetings Wednesday nights. And I'm not sure if we actually went to that many Friday nights, but at least to be honest, but the priority was like our class. And for my mom especially, she said that she says this, and she always says MGT class is the best class on the planet, because Massified Muhammad, God in person, set that up for us. Our training, our foundation as women is in that, and being in that environment, being an MGT class stuck with me. My earliest memories in MGT class, I didn't even realize how much it even stuck with me until I went to formerly all women's college, as was mentioned earlier. And in my senior year, we went to a women's summit, and there was a question, and I don't remember exactly what it is anymore, so I'm just paraphrasing, but it was something along the lines of like, as a woman, what was your first experience being told you couldn't do something because of your gender? And people had shared their experiences, And it was so interesting to me because I couldn't really think of anything, because the images of my early childhood were thinking of the incredible women of Muhammad Mosque number 7. Like, I'm talking about like toddler memories. And us, we having the space for ourselves, being also just, strong women in general. And not, like that just never occurred to me. And so, like but not realizing that those type of environments had stuck with me. One more memory I'll say, that also, like, the things that kept me, like, are these experiences, these memories of people who truly were striving to live the life, or just exciting things. One of my other earliest memories was when I was also a toddler. I was no more than 3 years old. I might have even been 2. And this is at Muhammad Mosque number 7 as well. And the brothers and sisters did a competition drill. And I remember looking up, because I was shorter than their knees. So I'm like looking up and thinking, I remember this. I remember thinking, wow, I want to do this one day. And those type of things. And it was fun. Like, they were having competition. Those things stick with us, and I imagine other nation babies can attest to this as well. Like, the decisions that the parents make in terms of what they decide to be around and how frequently they decide to be around the teachings, how much they decide to not just live it in the mosque, but live it at home and make it enjoyable and fun and open to, like, asking questions and understand, really not just dictating, but like letting us to intake this in for ourselves and understand this in for ourselves. That those things stay with us, and those was what stayed with me.
Yes, ma'am. Praise be to Allah. It's great that you had those wonderful experiences that ultimately shaped your decision to join the nation. And I see our dear sister Janine is on, our co-host of the show. So before I go to her, I'll ask you both one more question. I wanted to know if you can speak on your travel experiences. Sister Qadira, earlier you spoke on how you were able to go to Japan, and Sister Jadayah, I believe you've also traveled to Japan before. So if you all can just share your favorite memory from a different country, and we can start with you, Sister Qadira.
That's so hard. Every country is a well, I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to say every country, but the majority of the countries that I've been to have had incredible and very memorable experiences. Wow. Okay, maybe I'll just rapid fire. Let's see. One of the things was going to Japan. In Japan, I think that one stands out to me because that not only was it my first country, but just the country itself is to me, very Islamically aligned in terms of the practices, the respect in the culture, even though like Japanese are not necessarily religious, like, and a lot of them won't say they're religious. A lot of the country's culture is underpinned by Shintoism and Japanese Buddhism. And a lot of those practices are actually very similar to Islam. So like, one of the things that stood out to me, like one of my first days in Japan, I went to Tokyo and we went to a temple, and the temple had a hand washing practice you had to do. And the order was very, very similar to our wudu or ablution. And so seeing that was very interesting to me. Let's see, going to I'm thinking about Geneva. The last time that Sister Jadayah and I went to Geneva, I will not go into it too much, but we ended up in the French Alps. And that experience stuck out to me because when we were up there, it was snowing and everything was shut down. And we had to figure out and problem solve how to get back down that mountain. When we had information otherwise that there was traffic running up and down for us, like a bus running up and down for us. And so there was a couple other sisters who were with us, not in the nation, just other Black women that we were with. And just the lesson that I learned from that story, long and short of it, it will take like a long time to get into that story. But Allah blessed us to be able to find a way back down that mountain. But it was really a lesson of just understanding that when things don't come out as you plan, how do we respond to scenarios where we have to really trust that Allah is going to pull us through? Now, I didn't have any issue with that we would not get down that mountain. It was just a matter of how soon we would get down that mountain. And so that was very interesting. But so that's like a little side experience. And then another experience, I'll say one more that stands out to me is when I went to another one where Sister Jadayah and I went together when we went to Costa Rica. And that when we were in Costa Rica, we actually went to a volcano, and on that volcano, when we were coming back down, we were with a taxi driver, and the taxi driver had told us about his experience seeing the wheel. And we, unprompted, he didn't know that we were in the nation. I can't imagine. We are, like he just said and started talking about it, and we found out that it's very common knowledge out there. Like the news talks about it. And so it's just like the random experiences and the random encounters. But really it's every country. I can pick something and say, wow, this was a memorable experience, whether as a lesson or just something very enjoyable.
Yes, ma'am. It sounded like a pretty hectic time, but it also came with a lesson. And Sister Jadayah, if you can also give us your favorite experiences as well.
Sister Qadira, I can't believe you're going to talk about, oh yeah, favorite experience being stranded up a mountain in the first snow during a blizzard for hours with no way down but God himself, which we did, mind you. Okay. But I can't believe, and you're like, yeah, that's one of my favorite memories. Okay, same, honestly, but I didn't expect to have to revisit that cold time. Yo, there were wolves, yo. Okay, but another story.
Memorable experience.
Memorable.
Top memorable experience. Not favorite. Favorites.
Favorite is different. Okay, yeah, like you're getting cold. But for a lot of us, it was not fun. Okay, but so yeah. I just want to preface this by saying right now, that's kind of, I don't want to call it an unfair question, but it's a little impossible. Because life has been so Allah has been so generous, and I couldn't, I get asked that question sometimes, and I couldn't possibly. I kind of almost want to turn that question back to y'all and be like, wait, do you have like a favorite moment that stands out to you? And I wonder if there's a travel moment that might correlate with that. I kind of want to, do you have any thoughts? Did anything immediately, to Brother Wesley, did anything immediately come to your mind as you think about favorite moments? Because maybe I've experienced something similar abroad, because as Sister Qadira pointed out, we could probably go all day in a couple different directions.
Right. When I said favorite, I meant something that stood out to you the most. Like Sister Qadira said, even though it was more of a hectic time, it was very memorable. But I know that you all have been to different countries, so maybe things that you've seen that are different than America. I haven't been out the country before, so I know it's different cultures and things like that. Like maybe the food you ate, basically taking us through a little bit of the experience.
Got you. Thank you so much.
Yes,
so see, that's a different color. that's a different thought and angle. So let me think. Things that I've seen. I mean, one thing that I find, and so I have to apologize to my friends and family, because as soon as I come back from anywhere, it's almost like that place becomes my favorite place. because things outside of America in general just makes so much more sense than in the United States. So even just example like I'm from New York. New York is I love this city with my whole heart. I really do. It's a great place to be. Never a dull moment, even if you want dull moments. But it's a smelly place, and it doesn't make sense. And generally speaking, like you would never want to use like a public restroom kind of anywhere, because God knows what you'll find. It's like Russian roulette, except in reverse, where everything is a bad choice. And so anyway, but yeah, I remember being in Japan, being in Korea, and how in those places, like the experience of just walking into a public restroom, even if it's a public restroom in a subway, there's like calm, cool music playing. There's an expectation, and there are things there that you're supposed to clean up for the person who comes after you. I mentioned Japan as well, but Costa Rica too. Like there are a lot of places where you can, like I'm from the hood, where you definitely better not leave your bag wide open, unzipped, unattended, and then walk away and go shop somewhere. That kind of experience, like seeing, like living in a society where people can do that and be okay, like that to me is amazing. I remember seeing in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates, like just chilling on the beach, and everyone's fully clothed on the beach because it's a Muslim country, and it was so nice and peaceful, and it smelled so good in the air, and you could just feel safe. And that feeling of absolute just safety and calm is something that I really wish for all of our people to get to experience, where you're not worried about you're not you're not worried about all the kind of externalities that can come in the United States. Like there are pockets of, like we're taught that heaven and hell are two conditions of life, and they exist right here on earth, and they can have, like heaven and hell can be anywhere, right? Like you can have people in the same house and they're in two different spaces, even though they're in the same place. So that's something that stands out. And there's something else from what I heard you ask. It said things that are, oh, boom. I remember. So I did a semester abroad in Shanghai, China. As you read in the bio, my minor was in Mandarin in college. Well, one of my minors was in Mandarin. And so, yeah, going out to live there was interesting because, like, a lot of the things that people in the US are uncomfortable talking about culturally, in China is like the absolute reverse. So they're very, very, very frank about certain things. So people will really just ask you, like, hey, so how much money do you make? How much do you weigh? What, okay, like they will ask you like the stats of your life. They'll just walk up to you and start telling you about their opinions about you, whether they knew you or not. So just by virtue of looking like this, and I'm clearly not I'm clearly not from Shanghai when you see me. So they call you like Ligorin, which is like a foreigner. And so I just remember, people walking up to me, asking me about like, oh, like, hey, what's up with your hands? Why are you light on one side and like darker on the other? Why is that a thing? Or does your hair grow in braids, or do you have to like do that yourself? What's going on? Why, like asking me about my family history and like, where are you from? And then when I explained that I'm from Brooklyn, and they're like, oh, so you're American. And I'm like, that's not what I said. I said I'm from Brooklyn. There is a difference. Like, I need y'all to, understand. It's just for me, it's been like meeting people and knowing that it's a cliche, but like we really do have so many like commonalities. Like I've been in more than one country where like an elderly woman has just walked up to me and started teaching me the names of the flowers around me, simply because she felt like I should know the names of the flowers in her language. And I'm like, thank you so much. Like, thank you, Thea. Thank you, Ajima. Thank you, Ai. Like it just kind of happens. And so just kind of seeing that familial spirit where you can get to know someone's energy, even if you don't even speak their language, has been a really, 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 really beautiful thing. Like it's true. Like somebody said it once, like there's something like the language of the world. Like there's a way to understand people without necessarily speaking their language. And that spiritual element is a very real thing. And it's been such a blessing just to get to witness it and take part in it sometimes, where you can just kind of look someone in the eye and you don't have to say much. but you know, and they know, and you know that they know, and they know that you know that you get what I'm saying. So those are some of the things that stand out to me.
Yes, man. It sounds like you all had some great times while out, traveling the world. I'd love to be a tag along one day for sure. Praise be to Allah. And now with that, we'll turn it back over to Sister Janine. I believe she has a few questions to ask you about being an MGT. Praise be to Allah, Sister Janine.
Assalamu alaikum, family. Thank you for joining us. I have been listening and I love, love, love hearing your stories. I will say, seeing young women go overseas and travel the world, we don't see it enough. So I thank you for representing us as MGT and Vanguard each and every day. It's definitely beautiful to see. I want to ask you both, because I know your faces. I've seen you, at Savior's Day multiple times. So I want to ask you, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that we are all soldiers, right? But you all have a specialty training being in the Vanguard. So I would like to know, in what ways have you taken some of your Vanguard training with you when you go overseas? And what does that mean to you being a Vanguard and representing yourself in other nations? And we can start with Sister Qadira first and then Sister Jadayah.
First, the first thing that came to my mind was we have to understand that being a Vanguard means it's a full title, right? It's MGT Vanguard. And when we talk about being an MGT Vanguard, a crux of that is the MGT part, Muslim girls in training. And because in order to be the forefront, what are we representing? The forefront of being MGT. I say that to say, in our training, the first thing that came to my mind was a look at the feminist side of the culture of Islam, which is a book that the MGT and the Nation of Islam have. And we have our training of how we are to act at home and abroad. And when it comes for myself, when it comes to our training, we are to represent to the utmost the highest of civilization. And what is the highest of civilization? The highest civilization is what God, in the person of Master Father Muhammad, had given to us. And so when I travel, that really is in the forefront of my mind, in terms of dress. First, am I dressing how an MGT should dress, right? Am I representing, would I be proud to say that I am representing the Nation of Islam and how I'm dressing alone? And then in addition to that, our manners. We have a culture in the Nation of Islam. Am I representing who I am in my practices? And there's no two-siding about it. What I mean is am I just yes, we are to always strive to be better than we were yesterday, but when we talk about at home and abroad, how we act abroad should also be how we act at home, both inside our home, but also in the United States. Like right now, I'm not traveling abroad, but this is my training ground to get better and more highly developed in my training. Because then it's easier when I go to other countries to represent us. And so that was one of the things I thought of, was when we talk about embodying the highest level of civilization, we really have to understand that starts with our practice. And then by practicing that here, then we can practice that abroad. And so when we know everywhere we go, people want to know who we are. So we tell them, right? So when you have that foundation, then when I go abroad, people, I don't have to go abroad. Honestly, you can go to different parts in the United States, people with different cultures and backgrounds. And I've had conversations. I remember having conversation in the US. One of my good friends, her family is from China and Taiwan. And I had a conversation with her mom, who was from China. And she was saying, you always dress so nicely. And she said, Americans don't do that. She was talking about dressing in sweatpants and all the time and stuff like that. And she's like, we used to do that. And, when I lived in China, we did that, but we stopped doing that when we came over here, to, fit in.
Mhm.
And that was a very interesting conversation to me, because I was like, wow, this is going back into, if we do what we are supposed to represent, we really do represent the highest civilization. And we should not be compromising. And so that was one of the things I thought of. But also, in addition to that, being a vanguard, for me, it's also the fact that, again, being the forefront. Actually, I guess I answered it. Being a vanguard also means being the forefront of representation at home and abroad, online and offline, like wherever we are. It's always a striving piece. Like, we're always striving to be more refined, but we really first need to take it, or I'll say for myself, I took in it to heart that it's important to embody to the best of my ability what has been given to us in our MGT class.
Yes, ma'am. Praise be to Allah. Sister Jadayah.
Sister Qadira, you on a roll, first of all. Second of all, what comes up for me is mainly how I think that being like anyone who's been in the Vanguard class, really in the Nation of Islam, but since the question was about being in the Vanguard class, it also applies that being a Vanguard is like a state of mind too, in a way of being. In the way that I experienced it, like one Mother Tanetta did say that she spoke to a vision of the Vanguard being ambassadors for our nation. And it's been mentioned, many times, and especially cited from table talks that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad also had this vision that he'd be able to send committees of women, even as far as China, and that they would be able to get involved, I think, in like the political, in the upliftment of folks in those spaces, and that people would see us in our high level of civilization and refinement, and then come to want to like understand us more, and then want us more involved in those spaces. And so for me, the way I experience it is like, we strive to uphold like all general orders in effect all the time.
Mhm.
And so to me, what that means is that we strive to operate in a way that, in a way that keeps us and the people around us safe, but then also try to operate with a level of respect. And for me, I've had just so many moments where like I was asked to like, oh, Jadayah, can you take the lead in this? Or, oh, can you guard in this area? Or can you, or like ending up like just showing up as a leader in the space where people were turning and be like, oh, what do you think we should do about this? Like, even though I've been like the youngest person on certain teams, like, and everyone on the team is at least twice my age, if not that, but I might be the person who is able to bring together certain ideas and help clearly get a path forward to actually execute on something. And even if we're talking about people from all kinds of different cultures, but it's like, and it's not because I ask, I'm not like, hey, like, but it's like, it happens, I think, because that's just how we're taught to, one, do unto others you have done unto you, to strive to put the task of our unit and our team above our personal desires, which goes back to, justice and equality, and can we be fair in our dealings with people. I'll give an example. One time I was in Senegal in the Soumbédioune market. And the Soumbédioune market is like an artisan market in Dakar, which is their capital. Boom, right? So there I am. I purchased a souvenir. The sister gives me back my change. And one of the beautiful things about that space is that it is a Muslim country, right? And so then, boom, make the exchange. I give the money. She gives me the souvenir. I say, thank you. Assalamu alaikum. And then I leave, right? As I leave, the merchant sister comes running behind me like, sis, you left before I could give you your change, right?
Wow.
Which is so honorable of her, right? Again, Muslim country, but that's just proper handling the people, right? Like, you left before you could give me change. She's chasing after me to give me the change, but the thing is, she did give me the change, and I had it right there, and I was like, nah, sis, like, you gave me the change, don't worry. And she was like, oh, good, okay, assalamu alaikum. And I was like, oh, wa alaikum salam. And then afterward, one of the people that I was traveling with said, why would you say that? Like, you could have gotten more money. What are you talking about? And I was like, that we don't do that. That's not how we operate. We don't operate that way. Like, it's just simple truths. It didn't even occur to me like, yes, this is an opportunity to get another couple extra dollars. Like, it is so far removed from my way of thinking. I'm not saying that to say like, oh yay, like just pat yourself on the back for doing a good thing. It's not the point. But the point is just like our way of being makes friends for us all over the world. And it's just the simple truth of striving, to be upright and striving to live up to the standards of our faith. And if you do that, you really do. You make friends everywhere. I remember one time I was in Japan. I accidentally got my mom was joking with me just today about my adopted Japanese grandparents who all I did was compliment an elderly sister on her kimono, and then that became a conversation about where you from, such and such. And then she was like, "Oh, you should come and hang out with us. In 2 days from now, we'll meet at this time in this place, and we'll take you around and we'll show you these cool places." And I was like, "Sure, this is a wonderful opportunity." And it occurs to me now, like what a blessing it is that she would randomly feel compelled to want to invite us and bring us around. And the sister that I was traveling with had her headpiece on. Like my hair was covered, but she had on her headpiece, right? So they were inviting us to just go about their everyday life in Japan. And then I remember saying, like, she said, "Oh, Kujini, like we'll meet around 9 o'clock." And I was like, "Cool, Kuji Goroni." And she's like, "No, like Gucci Goroni is like around 9 o'clock." So she said, "Let's meet at 9 o'clock." I said, "Yes, let's meet at 9-ish." She corrected me. She said, "No, I didn't say 9-ish. I said 9 o'clock." And that to me was very Muslim. That was a very Allahu Akbar way. Because what, like, respect for time is respect for life. So I was like, oh, me and you are going to get along just fine. This is perfectly fine. We're here. We're here, And so, and yeah, sure enough, like it ended up being such a wonderful, in like that Japanese precision, but also like in Japan, like they aren't exactly, that culture is not a very frank culture. Like I'm from New York, where it's like, listen, this is what it is, and that's kindness, is just communicating things in a straightforward way to not waste time. But in Japan, people tend to be a little bit more roundabout. But she was right on it. I was like, we're gonna get along just fine, and we did. And that's why, like, yeah, now they're like my adopted Japanese grandparents. But that's just the point, right? Like we didn't do anything extra. We just strive to be ourselves in accordance with our teachings, and the world opens up to us in that way.
Praise be to Allah. And I definitely like how you both spoke on just your experiences, because sometimes we don't realize that we say we're Muslims, but we got to practice it as well. And we're being tested every day to prove that we are who we say we are. And it's not just about lip profession. So I applaud you both. That's definitely a beautiful testament. And one of my final question for you both. I heard you all talking about being nation babies. And, I represent the nation baby as well. It's a strong unit within the Nation of Islam. It's a beautiful thing. And it's really a blessing to be raised in these teachings and just have the truth. But I want to ask you both. I heard you all, I'm not sure which one of you spoke on the parents' role in raising the children in Islam. But what role would you say the village of Muslims has to play to make sure that our babies stay in Islam, so that way we can become from nation babies to nation adults to, our future generations staying in Islam and not just being born? And we can start with Sister Jadayah first, and then Sister Qadira.
I would just simply say, like, be. Well, my goodness. Okay, what came up for me as you asked that question? I started to see just like the faces of certain believers who made me feel comfortable as a young person in the mosque, like the people who I could come and ask questions to. Oh, shout out to Sister Phyllis and Sister Deborah and Sister Tara. Like, there's so many. It's just like, but it's the being available and being kind, and um letting the mosque be a place where we can have fun, and being a place where we can just be, even if that means running around the mosque sometimes when we probably shouldn't be running, but at least we're running in the mosque and not and not elsewhere. But I think in terms of like community, I think it's the love, right? So treating the children around us as if they are our own, and not in a sense of like, here, I'm going to pass you some intergenerational traumas, but in a sense of like, here, like, treating like the children in our mosque with the same level of love and respect that we would want our own to be treated, and treating the children themselves with respect. So just as an example, and some people would laugh, but I treat like even to the youngest of brothers at the mosque, they ask me a question, yes sir, no sir. The young sisters, yes ma'am, no ma'am. They also have the right to ask me questions, or the question like, oh, why are we doing it like this? What's up? And like actually actively listening to their opinions. Because as children, because and children and youth, like because we're young, we get told a lot of things, but people don't often turn to say, hey, what do you think about this? And especially if you're growing up in a place where you are taught from before you were born, you are God, children of the Most High God. There's no such thing as can't. You can do anything. But then, like, no one, you're taught all these things. But then, if no one turns around and actually asks, hey, what do you think about this? How should we do it? And then, like, actually take it seriously and not just like, oh, we're going to hear, like, inviting the youth for a pizza party, But it's like, in our historical precedents, like, we have history in the world of people being like 16, 12 years old, wise enough to rule entire nations, and they did. And so, point just being that I remember hearing, I think, a Native American sister say at the UN one day that the generation gap is a white man's invention. And I thought that was such an interesting perspective. But my point just is that just like we, like you, any person would want to be treated in a way that affirms human dignity and respect. And people love to be heard and feel heard, and to be considered, and to know that you truly matter to someone and to people. Like every single, like we all should matter to each other, of course, and especially I would lean in on the young ones. They need to know how valuable they are. Like they don't even know how brilliant they are. Like what? Like what? Multiple generations, no pork in the system. Like multiple generations of like knowing at least more of the truth of the history of our peoples and of God and of the world. Like there's so much sacrifice that has made their very existence possible, and yet like we have to lean in on that and listen when they speak.
Yes, ma'am. Praise be to Allah. Sister Qadira?
Yes. To what you just said, Sister Jadayah, there's something that root knowledge, growing up with that root knowledge does for us as growing up in the nation. It awakens, imagine having that from the beginning. It awakens something in us, something from the beginning. And that needs to be properly nurtured, because now that we have root knowledge, if we don't see that root knowledge being put into practice and we have an eye for discernment, then it can lead us away from it instead of closer to it. So the importance of the village also reflects that as well. And so when we talk about the importance of the youth, and we say, yes, the youth are at the forefront, and the youth, this is the Joshua generation. And we have, when we talk about the youth, we have to make sure that it's not just lip service in our practices. Because again, we have root knowledge. You've taught us. We can see when it's performative versus when it's being put into practice, right? And so it's like, and so we when the village comes in, it's so vitally important, because that is what we see when we come to the mosque. And so like when again, going back to memories I've personally had, I remember there's going to, in Muhammad Mosque number 7, going to MGT class, and they had a sister teach the youth. And she still teaches the youth to this day, the children. And I still have the papers. Like we had like coloring exercises and writing things. And I'm like again, toddler. And I still have that stuff. In fact, my mom has used that for my sister and for her and for the youth growing up at her age, because my sister is a few years younger than I am. And so when we were at our other mosque, she used that material as well. But when it comes to that, like as Sister Jadayah has said, like we talk about the importance of getting our people, right? Our people are also the young people who are already here. And so that engagement is so important because we we need those spaces, like Sister Jadayah was saying. The young people need those spaces where they can ask questions with other people, have those safe spaces, have the fun spaces. How often, like, you know, like having those events where we get to like spend time together, and whether that's going to the movies or having a mosque game night, and like just, and also just having each other's back. Like, we're in that position now, Sister Jadayah, we're in that position where we're the ones who are helping the new nation babies, the young nation babies. And like for myself, like one of the things that I find really important is like, how can we make our celebrations really important? And of course I do it for the believers, but I mostly do it for the children. Like Eid, when I moved out to Oklahoma City study group, not the first Eid, because I think that was once we started opening up again, because I moved, like the next Eid was during the pandemic, so everything was closed. But whenever everything was opening up back again, I have made sure to help spearhead that, because I remember going to I remember number 7. Number 7 makes their Eids huge. Like I remember, like there's the display of toys all over the stage, and the children just like taking whatever toys. I'm like, that's a core memory. Let's do that for the children here. Like, how can we make this not important for us, but important for them? Like this, yes, this is for us. This is for our edification, but to be honest, like where it really is like, we know Sundays is for the guests, but Sundays is also for the youth too. The ones who are already here, who have not yet accepted. And even if they have accepted, what do we have? If they're still young, what do we have for them? And so we have to make them the forefront of our decisions too. How is what we're doing impacting them? Are we, like for the Eid gifts, like, oh man, the children have had a field day with that. And I know, and they had bouncy houses, and it's just like, we have to be active in developing those core memories with them. And even in the everyday, checking in on them, saying, how you doing? You know, like having conversations. Like Sister Jadayah said, they're extremely intelligent, extremely wise too. Even like even like the toddlers, they make me laugh in a good way, because I'm like, wow, they don't even realize the power and knowledge and that they already have, that they're already exhibiting. But that needs to continue to be nurtured.
Praise be to Allah. Beautiful. I thank you all for this conversation tonight, because I think it's definitely a must have. And I know, we struggle in a world that's constantly pulling on us and pulling on our babies. So it's nice to have this conversation where we can see, what we can do and what we can do better to make sure we grow and we stay tight as a nation, as the darker times is definitely here, but they're going to get worse as time comes. But I definitely appreciate you both. I'm going to turn it over to Brother West. He's going to give us our station ID, and he actually has one more question for you both. Brother West?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. You are listening to WHID-FM. Thank you for tuning in and spending your valuable time. Without you, there is no WHID-FM. If you have any suggestions, please email us at WHID1919@gmail.com. Also, please subscribe to WHID-FM on YouTube and follow us on Facebook. Next week, our guests will be, inshallah, Brother Trevor and Sister Ladisha Muhammad from Muhammad number 2. So make sure you tune in for that wonderful episode. And my next question for you both, before I turn it back over to Sister Janine for announcements, I just wanted to ask you, what has Islam done for you? And whoever wants to go first can start.
I can start. Islam has done everything for me. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be who I am, and I would have done what I have done by the grace and permission of Allah if it wasn't for Islam. Like, I think about this often. Just even the fact that my grandparents had accepted the teachings, then my parents had accepted the teachings, and now me, like, having grown up in Islam, where we just talked about it earlier, having to deal with root knowledge from the beginning, like that, just the fact that I could even have had to have known this all my life, and that this is the culture and the framework and the root of who I am, Qadira myself, I would not be that without the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad under the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And I like, just for example, because I don't, there's so many different angles I can take. Like when I say this, like it's literally my life. For example, even just talking about like the information that we have in the nation. Like you heard my bio earlier. I graduated at the top of my class, like 3.98 GPA, 3.98, yes, 3.98 GPA. And that was not me. What I mean by that is that was the name, that was the teachings. I literally, my major was I graduated with a degree in political science. So I studied political science, and then my minors were religious studies and peace building, conflict resolution. If you know anything about those subject areas, it's a lot about gray area in those topics. It's not like mathematics or science where it's just like, here's the answer and that's it. Like most of the classes not debating, but like wrangling with difficult real life problems that governments or people are experiencing. And every time in those discussions, every time in my research, every time in my essays, all of it was the teachings. Like no matter what the topic was, I would pull back and be like, oh, the minister has spoken about this. Oh, the messenger has already spoken about this. This is the answer. And my teacher would be like, wow, Qadira, this is profound. Like religious studies, we were studying the Bible, like New Testament, Old Testament. It was the teachings. Sometimes, and it's because of that. I wasn't pulling from myself. I would have not known how to respond to these things had it not been for the teachings. And it's because of that I graduated with the 3.98 GPA. It was not for anything of myself. But even more than that, like I really owe my life to this. I owe to Master Fard Muhammad. I'm so grateful for what he has done for us and for the world, because this is the truth. And as Sister Jadayah said earlier, no matter wherever we go, wherever we travel, wherever you study, we can find the truth in it because we have the root of it. And that has been so comforting to me as a traveler, because again, traveling is part of my being. I know that's part of my purpose. And to know that what I have is the truth, and that I'm able to use what I have to unify and to bring down oppressors and tyrants and bring peace to this world as part of, I believe, as my part of my mission. I thank Allah for the teachings, because there really is no other answer. Thank you.
How am I supposed to follow that? Everything Sister Qadira said, basically. Yeah, literally everything she said, because being a nation baby, I literally just would not be alive without that. But what I will say is that Islam has given me friendships in all walks of life, truly. Like Allah's promise has been so very real. We talk about, luxury, money, good homes, and friendships in all walks of life. Definitely. It's words can't even begin to express, like, and the luxury part is really cool, because it's like knowing that you can access some of like the highest, most awesome and faraway places in the world, but then also knowing that there's a way to get there regardless of what's in your pocket, right? Like one time I prayed to Allah just because I wanted to leave the country. I was like, dear Master Father Muhammad, it'd be really nice if I could just leave the country for a little bit. I don't even think I had much in my bank account at all. And then next thing you know, I kid you not, a few days later, my friend's telling me, he's like, yeah, there's this all expenses paid conference in Serbia coming up. And I can't go. So, and then long story short, I end up getting, getting the invitation, getting a ticket, and then one day waking up to flight details and hotel stay details and all of this. Like, it's just like, Allah will make a way even when you may not see a way. But my point just is that it is an absolute blessing to get to access in real time, in real life, the promise that he's given us. And then also, I would just say peace, right? Because we live in a time where uncertainty is only increasing, and where the world is just becoming more dangerous, more untrusting, more just violent, it's getting hotter. Like the weather is just, is wilding out. Like nothing is making any sense. It's like upside down world in so many different directions. But we have right guidance. And the Honorable Minister Farrakhan has been like, and I can point to things that I've witnessed like since childhood, things that he said would happen that have happened and are continuing to happen. And knowing that by paying attention to what the Honorable Minister Farrakhan shares and knowing that he's divinely guided has actually been really, really just it has helped me maintain the space of peace no matter what's going on in the world, no matter what political unrest might be happening anywhere, no matter what's going on with our poor planet. Like there's so much just rampant injustice and lack of logic. It is just there's a lot going on in our world, and yet I get to have peace. Why? Because I had the heads up and I got to hear the news like 10, 12, 15, 20 years before it becomes a news story, because I read the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because I listen to the Honorable Minister Farrakhan. It's like being able to go through life in this time of uncertainty out here, but with peace of mind and with having a better sense of what to do and how to operate. And it's so it's such a relief. And so words, somebody said PYP, protect your peace. Yeah, honestly. And so that's why we say like Islam, one of its meanings in its root, in Arabic, one of its meanings is peace, right? Also submission to God's will. Also is not just a religion, it's a way of life. It is a considerably more peaceful one than any alternative. So that and the friends, and could talk about so many other things, but I think I'll leave it there. It's been a lifesaver in so many ways.
Yes, man. Thank you. And I thank you all for your wonderful answers to our questions. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Sister Janine.
Thank you all for just joining us today. It's definitely been wonderful. Our audience have thoroughly enjoyed you. We have to have you back just to hear some more of your stories so we can live vicariously through you and your experiences. We love how, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad has made friends for us, and you all get to show us a manifestation of that. So we definitely appreciate that. And with that, we just have a few announcements for our audience. If you like what you heard today, and I'm sure you have, you are invited to study with the Nation of Islam to learn the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad as taught by his chief helper, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. You can go to www.noi.org/go study. We have weekly webcasts every Sunday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have different webcasts. You can go into our archives and listen to many of the lectures from our guest ministers, from our Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Savior's Day, and so much more. You can also go to the local mosque in your city. Final Call Radio, download on all your devices. Take it with you on the go. If you want to be in tune with what's going on, your mind, body, and soul, and be up to date, as our sister said, with the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, download Final Call Radio. Listen to it on your way to work, as you go throughout the day, and really feed on something that's going to feed your mind and your spirit. Last but not least, we have our final call paper. You can get it from one of our brothers on the street. And you can also go to our website, finalcall.com, and you can definitely get a subscription from one of our brothers who are physically locked up. That you can definitely get the knowledge to them as well. But we need it for all of our people. And one of our last announcements, if you want a book that greatly empowers your child and give them something they can read that can empower their mind, look no further than I Never Knew I'm All That, Book 1. This book was written by our host, Brother Donald Muhammad, illustrations by Sister Amina Lay. And with that, I will turn it over to our brother Wesley Muhammad, who is going to give us our Muhammad moment, and then we will close out in prayer. Brother Wesley?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Tonight's Muhammad moment is brought to you, of course, by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. This is coming from a lecture entitled Stop the Killing, the Role of Women, Their Relationship with God and Man. This was delivered in Louisville, Kentucky on December 15th, 1990. You can get this lecture and many of the lectures by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on store.finalcall.com. So feel free to visit that site and get this message as well as all of the messages from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So let's enjoy tonight's Muhammad moment.
Females, I'm not dealing with color, I'm dealing with female. This womb is God's workshop. This womb can determine what comes from this womb. That's why no wise man, if you pardon this expression, will mess with, cheapen, take a woman for a plaything. That's right, brother. Not an intelligent man. That's right. Not a wise man. No real man is afraid of a woman becoming wise. In fact, no real man wants a woman who is not wise. Any society that deprives women deprives itself. And if I may respectfully say to every woman in the audience, there is no society on this earth that has given women their just due. There's no religion that has given women their just due. You may not want to clap on that. Come on, brother minister. But I'm going to say it because I believe it. Yes, sir. Christianity has failed women. Yes, sir. Judaism has failed women. Islam too. Yes, sir. Not Prophet Muhammad, not Jesus, not Moses. But the scholars have added in their ideas and corrupted the idea of the prophets of God where women are concerned. Yeah. Come on, wake us up, brother. Men act as though women have no divinity. All right. All right. All right. Come on, brother minister. Don't want a woman to speak in the church, in the mosque, or in the synagogue. Shut your mouth. Just be there. You said, but Paul wasn't Jesus. And there is no scholar of Islam the equal of Muhammad the Prophet. The Prophet freed women. And the scholars enslaved them. Women, by the very nature of themselves, are deeply intuitive. The seers in the church, very few men see. It's the women. My life is spared today because women whom God blessed with sight told me this and that that caused me to be alive today.
All praise is due to Allah. Again, we want to thank Sister Qadira and Sister Jadayah for coming on What Has Islam Done For Me? WHID-FM. Thank you again on behalf of the entire staff of WHID-FM. We want to thank our dynamic co-host, Sister Janine, for coming on and having some great dialogue with our sisters. Thank you, Brother West, as well, for your dialogue and your presence as well. And again, we thank the audience for coming on as well, asking questions, enjoying your feedback as well. And we pray that everything that was shared in their experiences and what they've been able to do has inspired you to continue on your path as well in Islam and striving to help our people in our community. As always as well, we want to thank our host, Brother Donald Muhammad, and also his helpmeet as well, Sister Cynthia Muhammad, and all she does to help Brother Donald with this entire platform of What Has Islam Done For Me. And of course, we can't go without thanking the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and Master Fard Muhammad, because without those three, there would be no What Has Islam Done For Me, no WHID-FM. So we thank you all for coming on and joining. I would like to now pass this program over to Brother West to close us out in prayer. Brother West.
Yes, sir. And Brother Wesley, thank you as also for stepping in and asking some wonderful questions. And with that, our closing prayer, teaching prayer. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim wala dallin. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum, family.
I want you to understand and know the time. It's time that we are accepted